So for me, my journey with this began that was a long time back, a long time of messing up in relationships and wondering why they were coming apart. And then at the end of one very traumatic relationship, traumatic because it broke up, I was heartbroken. I stopped to really dive deep into this topic and began to inquire from that inner voice, which I had learned to listen to. What's going on? Why is this, where am I messing up? And what do I need to do to make sure I don't? That's when I ended up writing Loving Soulfully. I ended up being, life kind of worked its way out in such a way that I ended up being, uh, well, everything kind of fell apart. And I ended up being in a tent for about 3 months, living on someone's property. And I used that time to really dig in, dive in, and finish writing this book. When I came back, life came back to normal. Everything kind of worked out, but it's like this perfect segue where I was able to do that. Living in the countryside, sleeping amongst the owls. It sounds romantic, but 3 months of being there is a long time. What I want to share with you that I came up with is this. The number one idea was this, that we think of love as being, or soulmate as being some perfect person that we're going to meet. And that right there, like we think this person is the one. And right there is the biggest mistake we make. This is what I learned. And I've now really come to see the wisdom of that. That love is an energy that comes through someone to us. The energy of the divine, the energy of God that comes through that being to us, to love us. And then if we can't sustain that energy, it leaves and tries again through a different form. Hopefully a little later, so that we've grown a little more, we've developed a little more, and we get another shot at this. And then if we can't sustain that, it leaves. And leaving can also happen when you're with somebody. It can happen when you're with that person and they've tuned out, or they've put a wall up and now you can't get through to them, or they're like tuned out and they're just busy watching TV every free moment they can, or hanging out with their buddies or whatever else, but they're not really connected with you. They're not really in that deep connection with you that they started off with. So that's where you know this energy has kind of like moved away, and now you're left with the shell of the relationship. It's like the electricity has left the light bulb. And now you've got the bulb, but you don't have the light that used to be in it. You've got the person, but not that vibrant spark that you enjoyed so much when you first met. So that's the first and biggest understanding that I got, is that love is not a person. Love is the energy of the divine flowing through us to another, the divine God wanting to love us through this person. Now, how do you sustain that, and how do you mess it up? Those were some of the big questions. Like, okay, so if messing it up is kind of the problem, okay, how do I make sure I don't do that? And the big takeaway I got from writing Loving Soulfully was that what messes it up is your mind, is your ego. Because love and mind cannot exist together. They are diametrically opposed forces. In other words, if you're going to be in love, you better be out of your mind. Does that make any sense to you? Right. If you want to sustain love, be willing to sustainably stay out of your mind. By all means, have your mind in other areas of your life, but not in your relationship. Picasso used to say this about his painting. He would say that when I enter my studio to paint, I leave my mind outside the door, the way worshippers leave their shoes outside a temple or a mosque. in Christianity, you all don't do that, but in in Hinduism, in Buddhism, uh, in the Muslim faith, they all leave their shoes outside. They see the shoes as something that are dirty and should not be brought into the place of worship. So the same way, they see the mind as something that needs to be left outside the door of your relationship, and you enter with your heart. You enter from that place. Then it is sustainable.
Yeah, I've noticed that when I'm just laughing and having fun and not
Right?
really caring, not holding that expectation, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the fact that this person isn't in a relationship with me.
Right.
But when I hang up and I start thinking about it, all of a sudden it matters a lot, and I'm
It
very
all matters
upset.
a lot.
I can cry myself to sleep thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So thinking really is at the heart of all our suffering. It is at the heart of all our misery. It is at the heart of all our heartbreak. So should we not think? I think it's important to think in the beginning. Like, have your things clear. If you, when you meet this person, you find out that they are gaming you, or they're trying to manipulate you or whatever, yeah, be on your guard, be alert. There are all kinds of people out there. Before you fall in love and give your heart to someone, make sure that they are genuine, that they're real, that they really care. Make sure you've made the wisest choice that you could make. Then, when you're in, be fully present. Then don't start getting into your head about little things. Oh, but you did this and you should have done that and you didn't do that, and the dishes and that. Sure, there are all those things that have to be dealt with. But never put those things above the love. The love comes first. The relationship comes first. Everything else is there to serve the relationship. What a lot of people will do is once they get married or start living together, then everything else comes first. The fact that we have work to do, or we have the house needs to be clean, or the kids need to be managed, and all those other peripheral issues are made the most important, and the relationship is made least important. So they will then be willing to fight for the house, fight for the dishes, fight for all those things, and sacrifice the love. All your fights come out of your head. How things should be. Invariably is that, or should not be. You should have done this, or you should not have done that, or all this now comes control. Give me your thoughts. What are you thinking as I say that? Jen, since you raised the question, any thoughts in your mind?
Well, I'm definitely aware that he's imperfect.
Good.
We've already had some challenges, but it's like that doesn't even faze me really. I guess it's no matter what he does, it's like I still see who he is like at his core, and I still love him even when he's screwing up.
Okay.
But he's really good at accepting and admitting when he's done something wrong, or when he's doing behaves in a way that he's not proud of, and then trying to correct, change for the better. So that's gives me hope, I guess. We have a good communication style. Like he doesn't get defensive when I talk to him about stuff, and I can be open with him, and he's open with me. So that's promising to me, I guess, compared to
It
most
is.
relationships.
It truly is. Yeah. Yeah. I would say you've got something very important here. I would say that took me the longest time to learn this. I did not know how to not be defensive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's been a real long learning curve, but when it clicked, I
Mm-hmm.
can tell you there is nothing more important. If you
It's
can
great.
keep your defenses out, because your defenses are your ego. Where's the defenses coming from? That's your ego. Your ego wanting to be right, wanting to prove itself, wanting to show, "Hey, but I didn't do it because of that. I did it because of this. But I didn't mean that, but I meant this."
Yeah.
Right? And so that's your ego stepping in, wanting to prove its point or be right or at least justify or, stand up for you at best. But
What I've
no.
realized is that when you're confident that somebody comes from a place of love, then you realize that any messages that they're giving you are coming from a place of love, and there's no defensiveness there. So that's just been that's how we feel about each other now, and I'm just hoping that it stays that way. Like in the future.
Well,
'Cause
hold on to what you're saying right now.
Mhm.
Hold on to these very words. What you just said, please write it, remember it, make sure you hone it in. This deep faith that this person is really, whatever it is, they might be messed up, they might be flawed. And trust me, there is nobody in this world that isn't. I am flawed, you are flawed, we're all flawed. There is nobody who's not,
Mhm.
right? I'm messed up, you're messed up, we're all messed up. There is no one who
Agreed.
isn't.
Mhm.
Right? Let's be very clear about that, because anything less than that, see, the biggest problem with our current idea of love is that we think this person who we call the one is some kind of perfect being. He's the one we've been looking for, and so now we put this person on a pedestal. And people who are put on pedestals will be torn down
Mhm.
sooner or later.
Plus,
It
that's a
is
lot of
not,
pressure to be in a
it's
pedestal.
just a lot of pressure. Exactly. Whereas what you said, Jen, is so vital to learn, is that every one of us is imperfect. And I'm so glad you've got that.
Mhm.
You got that. That's a big piece right there. So you start with that, we're all imperfect, that we have good intentions, that we're coming from a place of love, that we really care about each other, and that whatever flaws or mistakes or other things are showing up are only because of our human inadequacies. And we can talk about it and work our way through that. We don't have to make that a big deal. What we've got to make a big deal out of is the love, the fact that we care about each other. That has to be kept in the center. If you keep that in the center and treat everything else as part of the human condition, you'll survive this and you'll keep it growing.
Well, you mentioned something earlier about people like shutting, like when someone shuts himself off to your love.
Mhm.
And he has a fear of emotions. So it's like, it's been hard for him to kind of embrace this. He actually was the one that pursued me and felt like a magnetic attraction to me, and was like, we had been friends for a couple of years. And he was like, he just felt that for me. And then I guess I couldn't been resistant to it. And then once I opened myself up to it, it was obvious to me too. But he still struggles sometimes where he'll just kind of get scared. Something will trigger it and freak him out. And then I can honestly feel it. I can feel the energy shifts like in my chest. I can feel it when he closes himself off to me.
Okay.
And I can't,
This is learning how to practice vulnerability. This is
Mhm.
really good and this is really important.
Mhm.
So we all have this response, and some people have it more than others. The fact of the matter is, you're able to detect when that is happening.
Mhm.
You're able to spot when he's starting to shut down,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, totally.
Good. Have a code between the two of you
Mhm.
that when that starts to happen, instead of moving away, you will move towards each other.
Mhm.
At that point, go non-verbal.
Okay.
I mean, you could, or minimize the words,
Mhm.
and first just place your hand on him
Mhm.
and ask him to breathe and relax. Just come into his body
Mhm.
and feel the feelings, and then just express what they are. And then hold space for him, for his feelings to be expressed. Because if they're shut down, if they're invalidated, if you get either judgmental of those feelings, or if you get how do you
Hurt.
say, defensive, or you go into a hurt place or whatever, then he doesn't have the space to really express that. They need to be heard
Mhm.
and allowed. So once he develops the faith that you will hear him, that you will allow for his feelings to be, expressed, he'll start to do it more. Okay, so the easiest thing I would tell you is this: have an agreement in advance
Mhm.
that when that happens, he will either let you know or you will sense it and you will come closer. And the agreement is you will come together and just drop into your body. Place your hand on each other, ground each other like that, breathe, and then connect with that feeling. Say, I feel something's coming up in you. Can we talk about it?
Well, thank you.
Right?
Well, thank you.
And so you go from there. And then as you hear him in a non-defensive way, he'll open up and talk about what he's feeling.
Thank you.
And that could take a while for somebody who's not used to that.
Yeah.
You could have a few times where you don't say anything at all.
So not saying anything is not the way. You need to have a proactive approach to this.
Could
Just
you
being
say
quiet.
like, hey, it's okay, we don't have to talk about it right now, but whenever you're ready to talk about it, let me know. And then you give that space.
That can be
You're not there and demanding it, or waiting for it, because people can feel when you're waiting for them to talk too, I feel, So having, I guess, that balance of giving space, but also encouraging them to, when they're ready, to have the conversation.
Yeah. Exactly. Swati, you're busy. Have you had any thoughts or questions while we're talking?
No, I'm hearing, I'm listening. I'm not in a relationship currently, but these things can be applied to other relationships as well. So it's very interesting. I'm learning a lot. Yeah.
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 Truly, yeah. And to be able to have this information available to you when you're there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If that is something that you aspire to or would like to have, then yeah, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
What is Andrea saying on chat now? It's so helpful to use these methods with family. Yeah, absolutely. You can use these methods with family as well. So let's go further. What then causes a relationship to break down? We've said that it happens because our head is in the game, right? We're thinking, we're analyzing, we're feeling, we're defending, we're fighting, we're arguing, right? And that's what causes people to shut down. So, what can you do about it? Let's go further. We talked about listening, being non-defensive. The other thing you can do is really learning how to have a regular practice of connecting with each other. So most people connect through words, but connection really is a meditative process. It's a meditative process in which you become very present to the other person. And you practice really stepping out of your mind and into their mind, out of your body and into their body. You learn to really connect. In that practice, what you want to do is you want to develop, things that you can do. I mean, it's a very simple thing. I've often have couples like just spend a couple minutes a day looking into each other's eyes. Just that. And it's hard for them to do.
Seems like when you're younger, it's like all you do. Because I work I'm a high school teacher, so I see kids just staring into each other's eyes and being like so full of that connection all the time. That's all they have.
What do they do? Tell me about that. I didn't know this.
Well, at least in American public high schools, teenagers are just all about love. So they'll constantly just hold each other all the time. If they have those 30 minutes of, lunchtime, that's all they're doing, just holding each other, staring into each other's eyes. And it's uncomfortable as a teacher to see it all the time. But then as you get older, my friends who've been married for longer or been in relationships for longer, you know, they don't practice those things as much.
Or at all.
It becomes more, or at
Or
all,
at all.
it becomes more of like a business partnership. Like, well,
Yeah.
we have kids now. Well, we have a house now. Well, the car's in my name or his name, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, it becomes more about that. They take care of each other, they love each other, but they don't practice those intimate things, I guess.
Yeah. Wow, you've noticed this. This is great.
I have. I wonder if it's age or what is it that you lose that innocence or that joy in love.
It's the taking each other for granted. It's this thing that you are mine.
Yeah, I'm
In
scared of
fact,
having it and then losing it with someone. And then,
yeah.
you
You know, there is something to be said for, you know, how people want to be secure. They want to know that this relationship's going somewhere, that it has a future. All this is the ego. The ego wants to be safe, it wants to be secure. But the moment it becomes safe and secure, love goes out the window. And now it becomes a partnership, a practical relationship. It's really sad. We're not able to hold both possibilities for the most part. Most people, it's either or. Either they're deeply in love, which is the beginning stage, the honeymoon stage, as they call it, and then it graduates into this practical partnership. And I call that bullshit. That's not how you want to go. But to keep that original thing alive, that requires constant connection. I don't mean constant like every minute of the day. I just mean regular moments of connection where you're not doing anything other than just being, you know, connecting with each other. That could be through your eyes, it could be through touch. It's not just about talking about your day, talking about that can still become very mundane. That can still be very transactional. But it's about really connecting to where you see each other, touch each other, hold each other, um, and bond. Out of you have to come out of your head and into your body to really begin a relationship. It's not about just sex. In fact, it needs to be, I would say, 80% needs to be non-sexual. It's just putting some arbitrary figure to it. I'm not trying to, but it needs to be largely non-sexual. Um, and you know, sex can be reserved as sort of like icing on the cake, but it's not the cake, right? The cake, the heart of it needs to be the non-verbal, the physical connection. And that could be anything from touching, caressing, holding, all of those things. Now, it is said, according to the 5 love languages, that there are many different ways in which we experience, and physical touch is only one of them. I'll agree, there is some truth to that. But what I do know is this: connection occurs in a meditative space. Now, the physical allows for a meditative space. Just as in meditation, we go, we breathe, and then we come into our bodies, and now we're in this space where our mind is able to shut down. I'm saying that we need to go into that in whichever way. If the physical is not your thing, or that you've got an issue with that, then you'll need to explore other ways. What does it look like to be in a meditative space where you're, let's say, spending quality time with each other? What does it look like to be in a meditative space when you're doing acts of service for each other? What does that look like? So it would be a bit of an exploration, but I know this, that where the connection deepens is where you are deeply present to each other. Presence is powerful in a relationship. It's where that energy flows. So when we talk at the physical level, it's very easy to understand. You're kissing each other, you're touching each other, you're caressing each other, you're looking into each other. It's easy to understand, right? Now, when you come into something else where you talk of the other love languages, acts of service or quality time, or and there is the verbal element. I don't want to dismiss that, entirely. I'm just saying there's a tendency when you're doing when you're using your words, there's a tendency to be in your head. So if you can find words of affirmation where you step into your heart and you express those words, that's beautiful too. But it's not a practice we generally have, right? Imagine you're sitting with your beloved and you're able to not be here, but be talking about their qualities or attributes or their eyes, their, some quality that they have, and really connect with verbally like that. But it's from the heart. It's not to do with any chores that you have to do around the house or bills that have to be paid. And it's not about the practical stuff. If you can keep that stuff out the door and really speak the language of the heart, that would be great too. But it is learning how to do this, how to bring this flow into place.
I've noticed that I used to really value, well, one of my biggest love languages is quality time. So I noticed that even when I would go somewhere with somebody, it doesn't mean that I'm being present with them. So it's like a conscious effort to be somewhere, take all the pictures you want, take all the videos you want, and then stop.
Yeah.
And really be there with somebody, really be present with someone. Like I've taken so many trips. I've been with family, with ex-boyfriends, with friends, and I am somewhere very beautiful, but I'm not really there with that person. So I think it goes beyond just doing it, beyond just saying it. You have to really be present and mean it for it to, because even the words like, okay, I love you, babe, even that like loses meaning after a while.
Yeah.
It's like,
Remember the first time you said it? That's when it had real impact.
but
right?
after that, you can
And
tell
after,
though, like
yeah.
your boyfriend or whatever calls you love you, babe, every day, but then like, how come on March 22nd, it just like, I really felt it that day. What was that difference?
So you said something really important. When you're out on a trip or you decided to spend quality time and you've gone somewhere together, right? And you could be there but not be there. That was a great example you were giving. And what that would look like is you're there, you're taking all the pictures, right? And doing all the things, but you're not yet there. You've not yet dropped into that place. You've not really soaked it in. You're not really present to it. And you're right. Go ahead, take the pictures, whatever you want to do, get that out of the way, but then really take in that place, which is not something you can do through your phone. And you can't do it by just, talking about the place, but feel it, experience it. Right? Now the same thing with the person you've gone with, your beloved who you've gone with, to really experience them in that place, in that scenario, and then feel each other's presence there. I think the teenagers that you talked about, Andrea, earlier, if they were in that place, what would they be doing?
Exactly. They'd be describing it. They'd be really so into it and so present. Surprisingly, that's the thing that we criticize teenagers for, but they have it, because they haven't learned to be these cynical, practical lovers, basically. They
Right.
haven't learned those things that dull us. They just know
Yeah.
love and fantasy and romance, and you know, it's very ridiculous and unrealistic to be 100% that all the time. But I remember every detail of a trip that I had with my boyfriend when I was 17, like every
Right.
detail about it, every feeling, every smell. And like I don't have that now, you know. So there's some, I think, wisdom in that and really enjoying being somewhere with somebody.
Especially if it's your first love and you're 17, 14,
Oh yeah.
15, whatever.
Mhm.
I remember 14 years old and what that was like. Um, but you're right, everything is very vivid, everything is very heightened. And it's that experience you want to be having with the person you're with. And that is possible provided you're willing to understand the mechanics of how it works. Because now, having gotten older, you're trying to work your way back in time to what it was in the beginning. And how do you get there? You're going to have to figure out the mechanics of how to get there now. So now take what you've learned about meditation, take what you've learned about presence, and then now bring that into your relationship. And that's where it'll start to happen. That's where it'll start to happen on day-to-day things. You're having a meal together, right? You're even sitting and watching TV together. You've gone on a vacation together. So those are examples of quality time, right? But you're deeply present to each other. If for a moment you're doing something else too, you're noticing that place and you're taking some pictures of it, you're in the TV and you're getting absorbed for a minute, but it doesn't stop you from really holding each other, from really being present with each other, really being aware of what the other person, really being tuned in to the other. We are capable of that. You can be enjoying your meal and yet be deeply present with your partner. So now it's not just this partnership, but it is more, it's keeping that heart space alive. Partnership? I don't know. We need some other terminology for this other than romantic love and partnership. We seem to have these two extremes, right? Romance and then partnership. But what can we do that is different to either of these two? So we can be together consistently over a period of time and yet keep the heart space really alive. Jen, any thoughts?
Not specifically. I'm not sure.
Okay. Isa, we haven't heard from you. You've been there for a while. Do you want to come in and say something?
Just checking in with other person.
Okay.
Just quick check in. How was your day?
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel?
Yes, and that's a good start, but you need to be able to go deeper because a lot of times we do that and it becomes this, we check in, we talk about our day, and we stay at that level.
Yes, but I mean, like, how do you feel in the sense of how do you feel about your day? Not just what you did. So, like,
Okay.
in that sense.
Okay. I like that. That's a good way to explore that further. Yes.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah. What's the deeper experience behind all that happened? They're the events of the day, but then how do you feel about that? What's that? You know? Yeah. And then holding space for each other, not necessarily trying to solve or fix that. Right? Swati's doing a lot of nodding and agreeing. You want to say anything?
No, that's beautiful. Yes, sometimes like we just need to be heard, and it, yeah. I've been in that situation where sometimes I just want to be heard, and somebody just offering solutions. That's just like, it's annoying.
Knowing, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I say something?
Sure. That's why
I
we're here.
mean, like the feelings, why I mention feelings, lots of times we go throughout our day and we are not even aware of what we feel until someone asks, how do you feel? And then
Yes.
you have to really think, how do I feel about my experience and how do I feel in my body? Because we
Mhm.
just mindlessly operate our bodies. Like sometimes you have to pee and you're just holding it and
Mhm.
you didn't even notice, and then you have pain and you didn't even realize you caused it.
Mhm.
So the feeling part, I think it's very important to
So
check.
I would say to you that, a lot of men particularly, and I would speak for myself here and perhaps for other men as well, aren't aware of how they're feeling.
Mhm.
And so the question, particularly if you're with a male partner, ask your partner how he's feeling. I'm telling you, most of them aren't tuned into their feelings. As was it Jen? You were saying that, right? Um, and you need to encourage them. So they're talking about their day, and then as they're talking about it, say, "How did that feel for you?" And you might find he's a little puzzled. I used to be very puzzled. I had no clue what I'm feeling. I had to literally train myself in understanding.
I think I'm still
So,
puzzled, honestly. I still have problems doing that, like identifying what feelings I'm having.
right. So, what I found was that if somebody would ask me, "What am I feeling?" I would then start, at least now that I've developed somewhat of a language for it and somewhat of an understanding, I still needed someone to ask me because I'd often not be in that feeling state. I would be more in the doing or in the, speaking or in this, whatever, but it was not in that feeling state. If someone said, "Hey, how are you feeling about that?" I would drop in and now I could begin to do that. It's almost as if someone gave me permission to go there. And so you might notice that when you're with a male partner, it might really help him. Some people, of course, are so tuned into their feelings. They're always talking about their feelings, right? But other people aren't. And if your partner or you are one of those people, then it's a really valuable thing. What Isa is saying is ask about how does that feel for you? And encourage the person to drop into their feelings. And if they do that on a regular, if you're doing it with them on a regular basis, you'll find that they'll start to go there more often and more readily and more easily. So in the beginning, they might struggle a bit.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of straight men. I don't mean to make big generalizations, but they they will do anything to avoid answering that question.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times they're like, "Well, I worked. I hated it. What do you want me
Mm-hmm.
to do? Why are you asking me about it? Can we not talk about that? Can I just eat? Can I just enjoy myself? Can I just lay down? Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about that." And
Yeah,
that it's a tough one, but I think it's good to encourage that conversation. But maybe when they're not in this like heightened angry state,
right.
kind of wait for that downtime and then be like, "Hey, how was your day?" But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you may, if they're resistant to that at that time, say, "All right, could we talk about it later when you're more relaxed, once you've had something to eat?" Once, some people are very crabby when they haven't eaten, so
Yeah.
see what's behind it. Right? So after you've eaten, could be, what do you think about after that? Or, once they've started eating, once it's starting to settle in, say, "Hey, you want to talk about that? There seemed to be something going on there. How did you feel about it?" And encourage them to open up. And then when they're talking about how they feel about it, say, what does that feel like in your body? And then what's the deeper feeling behind that? Like, if say they notice a certain tension in their heart or in their solar plexus or whatever, and then what is that feeling trying to say to you? That's taking them deeper into the emotion. Because it's not always at the surface. Usually we feel a lot of stuff on the surface. Usually things like anger, frustration, irritation, all of that stuff is very surface. So you want to dive in deeper and encourage and build that deeper connection. So we talked earlier about vulnerability, but here also is about a better emotional language. So remember, all of these things need to be cultivated in the relationship. If you think that they're just supposed to be there, I'm sorry, it doesn't happen. Not everybody is so adept at their emotions. Not everybody is so adept at vulnerability. Not everybody is so adept at being defenseless. Not everybody is adept at listening or at communication. These things need to be cultivated. Hopefully, some amount of it they might have done beforehand, and they may have already had to deal with and learn, but there might be many more things that they haven't learned.
I have a question. I know it's almost time, but just maybe to explore today or another time, I want to hear people's thoughts about when we self-sabotage a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody is very, very sweet to us, treats us well, is vulnerable, is attentive, you know, two people, whatever, somebody wonderful, why we may go out of our way to find something wrong with it,
Mm-hmm.
or why we might, I don't know, look for reasons why it shouldn't work or it's not working.
Yeah.
Might be for a later time, but I'm
No, it's all right. Let's see if someone's got something here. Anyone want to share their thoughts on that one?
Can you repeat, please?
Yeah, I just want to know if anybody can relate to self-sabotaging a relationship. You could have somebody that's really wonderful, and you almost, I don't know if you feel like you don't deserve it, or you look for reasons why there's no way it's genuine, or I don't know, find reasons why it's not as great as it seems. I don't know if anybody can relate to that. Just self-sabotaging a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like I do that. I don't accept good things sometimes. Like it's hard for me to accept those good things as they are. I don't trust them. I'm like, nope, this is the honeymoon stage, or this isn't genuine, or it's just the exciting beginning, and watch, you're gonna get over it, or you're gonna get bored, and I feel like I project those negative feelings, and they end up
Yes,
believing it.
absolutely. And then they become a reality.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
Andrea.
You have got to keep the idealism alive. You have got to keep that sense of anticipation, that sense of, this is like the first time we're meeting ever, every day. That feeling alive. So there is a certain value to romanticism. Where romanticism goes off in the deep end is by creating idealization, for example. Where romanticism goes off at the deep end is these ideas that this will be forever. It may be, but the point is, if it isn't, then because you've bought into certain ideals, it can get really messed up. Then you're really heartbroken. You think this is the one. Now there'll never be another, and you get into that whole rabbit hole, right? But if you stick to the basic principle of romanticism is to create a sort of magic fairy dust on the whole experience, because the fact of the matter is life is pretty crappy. Right? And even if you wanted to be an optimistic person, even an optimistic person, should I say, has a certain veneer of magic painted over the mundaneness of life. It's just a way of looking at the world, right? Life is mundane. Life is boring, you can call it. Life is whatever, right? But they've got a certain way they look at life, which is sort of with this brush of everything's so magical, everything's so wonderful. There's this thing, and that's what the optimist has. That's their strength. There's nothing wrong in it, as long as you're not being, I mean, you don't need to be naive about it and expect everyone's going to treat me so nicely. And if they don't, like, how could that happen? And I'm disappointed and sad and hurt. No, have a brush that is so powerful that it paints over even the most negative things that are happening and adds a certain level of brightness to it. You're even able to see the brightness in the negative things. You're not trying to avoid the negative things. You're not trying to pretend they don't exist, but you're just painting them with a little brush of there's a deeper thing within this. I'm going to find it. There is some beauty within the dirt. I'm going to find it. There's some gold within the muck. I'm going to find it. Right? So in the same way, when you bring the romanticism to a relationship in a sort of contained way, it can add that sparkle without getting into some of the parts of romanticism that don't work, which is the idealization and the foreverness and all. But you see what I'm saying? So that needs to be kept alive. This skepticism that comes in, that you're talking about, Andrea, this sense of is a self-defense. It's a way of self-preservation. You know what? This thing is going to die out, and then it's going to become like everything else, every other relationship that you've had, and therefore you better guard yourself and protect yourself so you don't get hurt. It's all about that. It's the
Yeah,
ego
I think
trying to
it's
protect
just,
you.
it can be hard to distinguish, I think, when I'm just trying to be lighthearted and positive about a relationship and just accepting, nice things and positive things, and being naive and idealistic. Sometimes they're hard to tell apart. I'm like, am I being a fool
I would say be a
or am I
fool.
just being
In all
positive?
cases, no,
Yeah.
in all cases, be a fool. Unless the person is physically violent or the person is, mentally abusive to you, in which case, get the hell out. But
Right.
other than that, the fact that they have a few flaws and quirks and, things that don't quite match what you think they should be doing, be a fool, because that's always going to be there. And you have them as well. You're not perfect. So,
Right.
you've got plenty of flaws, they've got plenty of flaws. And it's important to be able to be a fool and overlook those things as long as they are not harmful things. Let's be real clear there. We don't want to have you stay on in relationships where someone is abusive and beating you or cheating or, lying or any of those things. Those are not places that you want to be in.
And if it ends, it ends.
If it ends, it ends. That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. What matters is love doesn't end. Love will always come back to you. Always have that faith. That's what we started off today's conversation with. Um, soul love is about the understanding that love is eternal. Just as the soul never dies, love never dies. If you can keep that in mind, you will always find love. Hold on to that belief regardless of what shows up in your life. Now, that love could show up through a lover, but it could also show up through your dog. It could show up through a child. It could show up through your friend. Don't limit love to a particular, form or a particular person. Be open to love wherever it shows up. It could show up in the wind. It could show up in the sunshine. As you stand there and just take in the sunshine, you might just feel this big, expansive feeling of love. That is as valid as that lover soulmate that you're thinking about. I
Yeah.
think
I've
it's
been
really
I'm trying
important.
to accept that, because
Yeah.
my mind goes back to, my mind says that this person that I love very much, that I used to be with, who is now my friend, my mind says that they have been demoted to being a friend, that it's
No.
not as good, that it's not as, the love is different, because it doesn't
It
have
is
those
different.
romantic things.
It's taken a different form. Think about how the soul leaves one body and goes into another body. It has taken a different form, but it is still as important as that person is still as important. You've shared something beautiful with them. Personally, even I do not like to look at people who, you know, may have been in love with at some point in my past. I still see them as being as special. The form of our interaction has changed. We've moved on, right? So I see that as a death has occurred and we moved into different bodies, so to speak.
Yeah.
But the thread of what we shared is still there. In other
Right.
words, there's a deep honoring of that person for what we shared at one time or other, right?
Yeah.
So that will always be there. I refuse to talk badly about exes. I refuse to talk ill of them.
Me too. But I try to convince myself that I don't miss that. I don't miss the romantic part. I don't miss the old version of it. But it's
And
accepting how it is now.
you use the beautiful word, the old version of it. The new version is now waiting to happen.
Yeah.
That was then. Now, how can you take the new you? Because you're also changing.
Yeah.
You've also changed and evolved since that time. The death of that relationship led to the birth of a new you. The new
Reincarnation.
you
It's
now
all.
needs to form a new relationship. See, there's a next level relationship waiting to happen for you. And so
Yeah.
it's super important to bring that relationship needs to be up to date with where you are right now.
I gotta stop thinking about it as being less and just being
Mhm.
different.
Different, exactly. It's the next version, the next generation, the next iteration, the next whatever they want to call it. What do they call it in software, Swati? There's the next what's the term?
Update.
The next update. Yeah, sure. That was simple. It's the updated version. How's that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Friendship is good. It's good.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So we'll end with that, and I'll see you guys. Oh, by the way, I'm so sorry I didn't announce this in the earlier meetup. Next week, Tuesday, I'm going to be traveling. So the meetup is canceled for next Tuesday. My flight is on that day,
Sounds
flying
good.
from India to the US. So I
See you
will not.
Saturday.
Yeah, we'll see. We have our Saturday group going on, but next Tuesday meetup is canceled. I will be seeing your guys in the meetup the following Tuesday.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye,
Thanks.
everybody.
Bye.
Happy journey.
Thank you. Forward to
Bye,
getting back.
Sarah.
Be
Thank
safe.
you.
Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Bye.